Welcome back, my friends, to the Mail-Right Real Estate Agent Podcast Show. This is episode 107, and we have a fantastic guest with us today. Her name is Samantha Belzer, and she's from Lawyers Title. And Samantha, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today and give you an opportunity to say hi to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So as you said, I'm Samantha Belzer with Lawyers Title. I grew up in real estate. I've been with lawyers for a couple of years now. I was with them previously when we were formerly known as Southland Title. Like I said, I grew up in real estate and been through all of the roller coasters that the industry is, but I think we all kind of enjoy that roller coaster a little bit, but I truly enjoy it and very passionate about my job.
Some years it was a little more of a roller coaster than others.
Very true.
All right. Well, we'll come back to some questions with you in just a minute, but I want to give my co-host Jonathan a chance to say hello and introduce himself.
Hi. Oh, thanks, Thomas. Hi there, folks. I'm the founder of Mail-Right. We help you get more leads online. We mostly do that with an automated system that works with the power of Facebook. Back to you, Thomas.
That's the trouble with running two companies, huh, Jonathan? You're not sure which one you're about to introduce.
I always talked about my other company.
At least you won't get in trouble with the sponsor here.
What country are we broadcasting and what day is it, Thomas?
All right. Well, and I'm Thomas J. Nelson. I'm a residential realtor here in beautiful San Diego, California, where I'm never too busy for your referrals. I help people with their real estate investments in the residential world of buying, selling, and investing. And now back to you, Samantha.
Before that, Thomas, what's the weather like where you are?
You know, why do you always ask me that on the one day we're overcast? Because
overcast.
I could say sunny and 75, but today we're actually, believe it or not, expecting some rain today.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You're roughing it. It's going to be 100 in Reno today. It's disgusting. Sorry, he never lets me get away with anything, folks. So I've got to tease him somehow. Yeah, all right, back to you, Thomas.
You looked at the weather report just to ask me that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
All right. Well, excuse us, Samantha. It's the frat house here sometimes. So, title insurance. What an exciting topic. We're going to make
quite exciting.
Well, it is if you're in the middle of a deal, folks, because it's actually very important to keep yourself out of hot water. And so let's start with, what is title insurance?
So the question of the hour that everyone seems to ask, what title insurance is when you go to purchase a property, we ensure that you're not taking on any liens. So what could happen is you could have tax liens on the property, you could have child support liens, you could have mechanics liens. A lot of times, for instance, we could see like a mother add her son to title and not even know that he's got some liens to his name. All of a sudden, they now attach to the property and he's got child support tax liens attached to that property. So when they go to sell, they have to satisfy those. So we make sure that there's no risk for that buyer coming in, and that's what we ensure. Or we'll also see a lot of times with investors nowadays, they're flipping these properties so quickly that the property tax liens take a little bit to catch up. And all of a sudden down the road, they're now attached to a different property that they now own. So I've seen that where it just chases them property to property, and we got to clear those up. But Lawyers Title is part of the Fidelity National Finance Corporation, and we make up the largest title insurance company in the world. So we underwrite all of our own policies, and just to have that backing is absolutely phenomenal.
So, and just to clear it up, because we have listeners that are new in the industry to very seasoned realtors, brokers, investors, and entrepreneurs that have nothing to do with real estate. When we're talking about liens, we're essentially talking about an outside party has an interest in the property because the owner of that property owes them money, and so a lien is more or less a bill that's attached to the property, and the property can't transfer title, meaning my name can't come off it and turn it into Jonathan's name until all those liens or money owed is paid off.
Exactly.
And you brought up a term which I know causes some confusion. A mechanic's lien is not your car mechanic, folks.
No.
And that's a very important one to bring up, because with all these fix and flips, what a mechanic's lien represents is a contractor or a homeowner that owns the property that did not pay all his tradesmen, and now they've put liens against the property. And so that is definitely something we look out for on fix and flips, because it's not unheard of that some of these fix and flippers aren't the most, let's just say ethical.
It happens all the time. And, it's really funny because a lot of people think, a lot of sellers or investors think, they're going to get away with not paying, and they don't disclose. And then it pops up and it's like, surprise. We've had even refis where all of a sudden we go to record and the mechanic's lien pops up at the last minute. They were doing a construction loan and blew the whole entire deal. It's got, we cannot close on it until that's taken care of and paid.
Well, and this, probably the worst one I ever dealt with was, I was helping somebody sell a property, and we were by the skin of our teeth avoiding a short sale. And that was only because we had a very generous buyer on the other side that understood it was to his advantage too, to keep us from being a short sale. So here we are thinking problem solved. We're going to sell it for a couple bucks more than it's owed on it. Everyone's going to get paid off. And in the 11th hour shows up a child support lien out of nowhere, $14,000 out of nowhere. And so who's going to pay that? Right. So this is exactly why, in my world, for residential real estate, a preliminary title report is crucial, because we get to see all this in advance. And
Absolutely.
It's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see investors make, especially at auction. When they're buying a property, they don't bother to get any kind of title, preliminary title reports on the property. And then we're back to what you were saying earlier. They've got a lien chasing them around now because they own the property.
Well, and that's just it. I always advise all of my clients, whether they're an investor, whether they're an agent, a lender, to always do your homework. Open up that prelim the second you get word that you're going to take the listing on. Like you said, you're going to purchase a property at auction. You want to know what you're getting yourself into. So all of a sudden, when you open up escrow, you're not shocked by all of these things that are starting to pop up. So it's definitely nice to kind of put the cart before the horse in this instance, because that way you know exactly what's going on the property. And that's what we're here for. We do these title searches, dig in. We dig into public records. We do everything we can to find out anything that's going on the property.
So, and one of the important things about title insurance, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if something like that is missed, if you don't catch an IRS lien, or you don't catch that there's another party on the title that shows up in the 11th hour and says, hey, I never signed off on selling this property, that's what the insurance is protecting the buyer from, and you take the responsibility for that. We
take the risk, yes.
Right.
We have one of those, actually, one of my clients right now, exact scenario that you just said, that the investor bought the property, the seller sold it to us, he inherited the property, the ex-wife was the executor of the estate. And she's now claiming that she was supposed to be one of the heirs to it, which she was not. He was the sole heir to it. Their divorce is finalized, and now she's coming back after it, after we've closed escrow. So now they're making a claim on the policy. In other words, I mean, the seller was pretty fraudulent and didn't represent himself. I think he was in on it, to be honest. But things like that happen. I mean, it happens every day.
And I'm going to ask you a couple questions that obviously from being in the industry, I know the answers to, but I want to make sure that this is clear. I don't want to gloss over anything. And these are some questions that I get from my clients sometimes. So I want to share them with our listeners. And that is, who is title insurance protecting? Is it the buyer, the seller, or ultimately is it both?
Ultimately, it's the buyer is who you're truly, truly protecting. Yes, the seller in most cases is paying the policy, but you're truly protecting the buyer, because the buyer doesn't know what they're getting themselves into. They find a house, they're happy, they just want to get into this new home, but there could be, a whole another story to it. You never know with what's going on with the seller.
Well, and the thing is, too, is that the seller, as you mentioned before, can benefit from it, even though they're paying for it essentially to assure the buyer everything's kosher. the bottom line is you want to know these things in advance. That's why I always pull a preliminary title report, do a property inspection and a pest inspection in California properties as a given, unless the seller is just unable to do these, because these are all advanced warning systems. This is our Doppler radar. Okay, so here's another question I get asked by clients a lot. Is it optional? I get a lot of sellers that say to me, do I have to do this?
Yes. I mean, no lender is going to sign off on it if you do not have title insurance. They're not going to do it. It's a huge, huge risk. And even I've got people who buy auction properties at tax auctions, and title insurance won't even cover those. And to look at that, that's an extreme, extreme risk. And like I said, you cannot get a loan without it.
And then what the other question I get posed, well, this is a cash deal. Why do I need title insurance?
Once again, I mean, it's true protection for the buyer. It doesn't matter if you have a cash or a loan. I mean, you don't want to take on a property that you don't know what's truly going on it, especially if you're plugging in all this cash into it. To me personally, that's a bigger risk than having a loan on it. You're paying all this cash and you don't even know what's going on the property.
I agree. It's amazing though. It's funny. People are in San Diego. The average home, arguably is about $500,000. They're spending $500,000 and they're arguing about spending a couple $100 on a policy. It's funny, but these are the questions we get asked in the field.
Yeah, it happens, and everyone wants a discount. And like you said, I mean, it's all relative when you're selling $500,000 homes, and that's the median home price. And you're looking at policies that are barely anything just to protect you.
Yep.
And then you look at how much you spend in car insurance and health insurance and things like that. This is the biggest investment in your life, and you're not going to protect yourself. I mean, you look at that, it's all relative.
Right. Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because I mean, for the most part, title insurance is, my understanding, it's regulated. I mean, it doesn't vary tremendously from company to company, but
no.
So can you talk a little bit about how the pricing works?
So the pricing basically, everything is regulated now by the Department of Insurance. We have posted rates now. It used to be that we could discount policies, it's a friend of a friend, we can throw in a discount. Now, because we're so regulated, and honestly, it's better that we're regulated. We have posted rates. We have to go off of those rates, because if something were to happen and the Department of Insurance comes in and they audit a file and say, well, this person paid this amount and this person paid that amount, we've got a whole different can of worms on our hands. Yeah. So each title insurance company, yes, I mean, we're usually within dollars of each other. Yeah. And we do offer the same policies. Obviously, there are bigger companies like my company out there versus other companies. And just to know that you have the financial stability with a bigger company and they're underwriting their own policies. Because we do see some companies, especially after 2008 happened, we saw a lot of these companies close their doors, sell everything off, and then you're chasing it, trying to figure out who now currently has the policy. And personally, like I said, this is my own opinion, it's better to go with a bigger company that are underwriting their own policies and have the financial backing.
I was surprised to read on your website that your company in all forms, I assume combined, as you said, there was a name change a while back, but it's been around since 1925.
Yes. Yes.
Now, where did they originate?
They originated on the East Coast.
Okay.
That's why we have the name Lawyers Title, because there are so many attorney states on the East Coast, and it originally was lawyers who founded it. Right.
And that's a big well, it's a detail, let's say, that a lot of people aren't aware of, is that a lot of the things we do as realtors in California, a lawyer does on the East Coast. When I speak with my friends, say on Active Rain, our national blog network, the differences in how each state runs and what's legal and what's illegal from state to state, it's amazing the differences.
It really is. And you look at California, title is mainly, especially like as a rep myself, my relationships are with agents like yourself and with lenders. Now you go to New York and the agents are not dictating who title and escrow are. That's the attorneys who are dictating that. So those relationships are truly with them.
Yep.
I was an escrow rep in Dallas, Texas for a little bit, and that's a whole different ballgame as well.
Yep.
You know, it's not, everything's combined. It's roundtable closings. It's not the same at all. So it does vary big time state to state and what is regulated, what is not. And California, I will say with SB 133, we are, and that's Senate Bill 133, we are probably one of the most regulated because it was kind of like the Wild West back in '07.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's funny because one of the, and I'm going to sidebar just for a minute here. One of the concerns I always have with buyers that bring in their own lenders with them is sometimes they're using out-of-state lenders, and especially places like Texas, they do things so differently that they think we're going to do it the way they do it in Texas when they have to adapt to the way we do it in California. And you mentioned the closings, and you know that's a 2 to 3 day event in California where it's sitting at a table in Texas.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
all in one sitting. So, you know, my East Coast clients always ask me why they're not getting handed keys when they're signing their loan docs in California. So it really does vary. In fact, even, you know, having worked in Northern California early in my career and now in Southern California, California behaves like two different states,
they do.
North to south. It's actually the opposite down here than it is up there.
It really is.
Okay, well, I think from the look on Jonathan's face, it's time for our commercial. So I'm going to toss it over to him, and then we'll come back with some more questions for you, Samantha.
Yeah, we're going to go for our commercial. Can't even talk today, folks. We're going to go for our commercial today, folks. And then we'll be back in a second, and we'll be talking some more with the delectable Samantha. Be back in a minute. We're coming back. We're going to continue our discussion. I've got a question, actually, Thomas.
Okay.
Go
for it.
So, you know, I was thinking of international buyers. Now, obviously, you're part of the world. There's probably a lot of interest internationally from the Far East, from China, Japan.
Yes.
Have you got the experience to really deal with international? Because I found with a lot of American financial institutions, the mention of foreign elements, they just literally freeze up at the words, actually.
Yeah, we do. Because I mainly focus on the metro area of San Diego and downtown. We have a lot of foreign buyers that come into downtown. I have a lot of agents who work with people in Dubai, in China, in Japan. And so we really try and provide like on and off market stats because they constantly want to see what the market is doing before they wire money and purchase property out here. So it's a totally different ballgame when it comes to marketing to them. But we help our clients with that. And we are starting to see a lot more of international buyers.
So I would imagine because of the certain legislation after 9/11 about the transfer of monies from offshore accounts, is the threshold, the amount of work that you have to do, quite higher?
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we definitely have to research it much more so. So that is the tough part about it, I will say. Because, I mean, we see it all the time. I see people from China constantly where it's like, we'll just wire the money and we'll own the property. I'm like, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen, is it?
No.
We're all working harder now than we ever were, Jonathan.
Yeah.
The funny part, and I was talking to one of my clients who's a lawyer, and he said the exact same thing yesterday. The legal field and the real estate industry, there's no more arriving at a certain point in your career and resting on your laurels. I mean, you have to go hard your whole career at this point because of technology, competition, what's going on in the world. It's just a different ball game, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it's definitely not a part-time job anymore.
No.
So, and that's kind of the importance of having a good team. You know, from a real estate standpoint, you want to have a solid team of title, escrow, lenders, tradesmen that do your inspections and so forth, because it's not, it's still fun to be in real estate, but it's gotten a lot more serious is the only way I can put it. There's really no room for what seemed to be a little bit of the levity of the industry before. It's not quite the way it used to be.
No, it's really not. And I know we've had this conversation before, and when everything changed, it was kind of nice because it did like a cleanse. Although it regulated a lot more, it did a nice cleanse of the people that weren't conducting themselves professionally. And for agents, it was a lot easier. They didn't have to go out and hit the streets and prospect, and, deals were falling in their laps left and right. And it is kind of nice when you go through that roller coaster that the cleanse does happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to ask Thomas a quick question, obviously related to the subject. So, you're representing a seller, and have you found an enormous difference in title companies and the way you've been served? And what are some, have you got any tips for maybe some junior agents about who they should work with when it comes around this area, Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. Thanks for asking me that, because that's actually what brings Samantha into my fold. Is what I was saying before is true. The expectations of our clients of us are gone up exponentially because they're more educated, and so you can't BS your way through real estate. You got to know what you're talking about, because in most cases your clients are doing so much research that they know as much or more than you do about a particular area, because they're focused on it. And the same is true for realtors of their title and escrow. And my title needs, where they were kind of generic for the majority of my career, dramatically changed in the last, I'm going to say, 7 years. And that also started creating a shift in who I focused my needs on. It was no longer the default title company that I always used, because they were not delivering to me the extras that help me create the business that sends it back to them. And lawyers originally was introduced to me through a transaction that I didn't get to pick title and escrow on. And lawyers happened to be the choice of that seller. And I got a taste of what it was like to work with them, and they were extremely professional, and they stood out to me. So, and then over time, Samantha and her partner chipped away and got a meeting with me, but what really was what they had to offer met the need I had at the right moment, and they're helping me not only with my title needs, but they're helping me grow my business because of the tools they offer. So, and that is where I'm going to defer to Samantha to talk about what differentiates lawyers from a lot of the other title companies, because even though financially they're not going to cost you much different, and in a sense they're a commodity in that regard, where they become a very unique selling proposition is the extras that they can legally offer agents as far as help in growing their businesses. And I'm just going to compliment Samantha right here that lawyers is one of the ones that are very proactive about it. But Samantha, that was actually going to be one of my questions, is how do you go about partnering with agents, staying within the RESPA guidelines, which is our governing body, to make sure that you're not bribing us and not bribing our clients for business, essentially, and we're ethical. But tell us about some of the tools and the services that you offer agents that really do separate you.
So like you said earlier, I mean, most title companies can offer the same things. Our pricing is all very similar. Where I really try and set myself aside is I like to be a resource. How can I help you build your business? Because it's extremely competitive in the title world. I'm sure you get hounded daily by competitors. Same thing with lenders. And it's really, truly how we can help you grow your business. So as I sit down with a client, I always like to see how they're prospecting, what they're farming, what areas they're looking at, if they're just strictly marketing to their sphere of influence. And I really try and have an edge on everything. I'm constantly going through new training and finding new tools, because the real estate industry is ever changing. You have to really be cutting edge when it comes to that. And if you don't, then someone else is going to get the business, because I like to call my partner and I call ourselves like the concierge. We're always available because your job is 24/7. Our job has to be 24/7. And if we help you grow your business, in turn, that's going to grow our business. So it's all one big circle, to be honest. And like I said, with millennials coming in, the real estate industry is really, really changing. And you have to be up on what's new, what's upcoming. And I'm always a guinea pig for any new farming tool, marketing tool, because I want to know what works and what doesn't. And my biggest thing is being able to respond instantly to my clients and always be available. So I put together, and it is hard because, like I said, back in 07 to 08, you weren't so highly regulated. So there was a lot of buying business and doing things not by the book. And so it's really relationship based now, which in some ways I prefer, because I truly try and build my clientele with people that are going to be loyal to me, because I help them in some ways.
Yeah.
So, and being a new realtor in the business, my biggest piece of advice that I always tell people is build your team. Find your loyal people. Find that lender that you can lean on night and day, who's going to be there for your clients and make you look like a superstar. Find your title and escrow. To be honest, there's good, bad, and ugly escrow officers. And you'll see it throughout all of your transactions, but find that one that will jump through hoops for you. Same thing with title. Find the one that is going to help you grow your business, and truly stay true to those people. And people are going to drop the ball. It happens. We're humans. But at the same time, you definitely want to have that team to support you.
Well, and it's like you were saying, I mean, back in the day, it was great to be taken to lunch, or they were throwing tchotchkes your way. But at the end of the day, that doesn't build the relationship. I mean, and that's any way the wind blows. I mean, that's every day. You can go to lunch every day in this industry on somebody trying to milk business out of you. But it's the people that you can count on that you are going to make you look good to your clients, because your clients are being taken care of by them as at a standard that you take care of them. It's also because, when I build a team that includes folks like you, Samantha, I learn from you. It's not just me looking at you like, hey, I'm the lead here. We're a tribe, and we're all teaching each other our skills, and so that's something that you want to have a team where you can be vulnerable to learn. You need to be able to feel comfortable that you don't know it all, and you need to surround yourself with people that, in other words, hire your weaknesses. And you don't need to be good at everything. You just need to be surrounded by people that are, and be willing to learn from them. And so you can go out and do what you're an expert at doing, which is bringing in the business.
Right.
So, I've got another quick question for you, Thomas, around the subject. So you were talking about getting a provisional report, title report, when you're representing a seller. Have you ever had a seller that's totally refused to have one? And if that's the case, isn't it a total alarm bell situation? It's really telling you that there is something wrong. And if that's your feeling about it, how have you dealt with it? I'm just asking this as a kind of giving information maybe to some junior agents that are listening to the show.
You know what? I've never had that happen, but I don't think I set myself up to ever have it happen, and that's because this is what I was saying earlier. You got to know what you're doing. When I go in, I don't ask people, is this the way it's going to go? I show people this is how we do it here. Right. Now, there are certain questions I do ask. I don't want to come across like, hey, I'm a know-it-all and this is how it goes. But there are certain things like, I don't say, would you like to get a property inspection before we come on the MLS? I go, when would you like to set up the property inspection? It's a matter of fact. And so is a preliminary title report. But to your question, is it a red flag if they don't want to do it? Yes, it is. And in my world, at this point in my career, everything comes to a screeching halt until that's addressed. Because as Samantha's already pointed out, that's a very required document, and I don't want to get into hot water. It's the same mentality people have. Well, if I don't go to the doctor, he can't tell me I have cancer, so I don't have cancer. But if you have it, you got to deal with it. So there's no postponing it. It's going to rear its ugly head. And as Samantha alluded to earlier, if it happens during escrow, it typically will kill a deal. Whereas if you find out prior to going on the market, you can deal with it then. And you know what? You're going to have to face the fact that once in a while, dealing with it means this house isn't going on the market right now. It's going to get postponed until this is dealt with. And you got to have the professional viewpoint of that, when you list it when it's right. And when it's right, it means you have clear title, or at least you find out you don't have clear title, but you've got people in place to start clearing that title, and you have the ability to do so.
I was going to ask, it's fantastic, Tom. I was just going to ask Samantha, obviously, because of confidentiality and the industry you're in, you can't give specifics. But have you got any kind of funny stories? What's been the most bizarre situation you found yourself in do this, Samantha?
I'm just trying to think. I see so many different things. We see some interesting names on LLCs all the time. I had one where they had $150,000 in unpaid taxes.
Oof.
And, the agent knew about it. And I mean, unfortunately, they just collected their rent on their income property every single month and never paid their property tax, and thought, you know what, I'm going to go to sell. I'm going to make this huge profit, and this is how it's going to be. And I mean, it fell out of escrow 3 times, and finally, all said and done, they got it closed, and they walked away with hardly anything because they didn't pay the property tax. And it's like, lesson learned, just pay for it. It's not that big of a deal. Or we'll see.
It becomes more than just the taxes, because then you have the late fees and all the fines.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just it. And that's what people don't understand is they will get you on those fees. I mean, and they add up quick. I mean, real quick. A lot of times we'll see where, you've got a common name and it'll say, this person is on title, and truly it's not that person. John Smith, there's a million John Smiths in the world, and you truly have to figure out their true identity and go through all of it. Because we've had some where they had all these child support liens. In fact, this is a funny story. My partner recently refied his house, and a child support lien popped up. He doesn't have any children, and he's owned this house.
Oh, where's that one come from?
Yeah, he has owned this house for 15 years, and he's like, where did this come from?
I bet that was an interesting discussion with his partner.
Yeah, exactly. And our title officer looks it up and is like, oh, I didn't know you had children. Where did these children come from?
They come under the table.
Yeah. So and that, when that happens, you just have to prove your identity, and he has a common name. So it happens.
Yeah. That actually happened to me, the exact same thing when I was doing a refi a few years back. And I had to prove that in my case, I did have a kid and I had been divorced, but I was very much up to date. And, but I have also a common name. And I very often have to, they provide you a form called an AKA form, and it gives you a list of all the names where they've pulled your name up, and you have to explain every version of your name. And oftentimes the explanation is that's just not me. But I want to piggyback on your question, Jonathan. So, Samantha, you're around realtors all day long, and I'm so sorry for that. But you seem to have a good personality and attitude despite that. So, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly? What do you see best practices agents doing out there that impresses you, and maybe a cautionary tale to help our newer agents avoid?
I truly believe, because we've got so many different brokerages out there too. And and this is my own personal opinion, I always advise new agents, because it's such a dog-eat-dog world and it's so competitive, that if you are a new agent, join a brokerage that is going to offer you support, or join a team that you truly have a mentor. Because when you go through real estate school, they're not teaching you forms. They're not teaching you any of that. And then all of a sudden you get into your first transaction and you're going to get eaten alive.
Yep. And
so that, when it comes to new agents, that's my biggest piece of advice. And I see a lot of agents out there that are like, what are you going to do for my business? And truly, when I see agents like that, I'm trying to build, just like you said earlier, my clientele I'm building around being loyal as well. And people that are doing their best practices and are honest, because honestly, when people, there are shady people out there still to this day and are buying business. And when one goes down, they all go down. And that's what I always advise, is that if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
Yep.
And there's no easy, fast way to make a quick buck. There's really not. You've got to do it right. It's going to take you time, and you're going to have to hustle. And that's truly what it is. I mean, no one got to where they're at overnight. And if they did something wrong.
That's great advice, because I tell you, it's often said in this industry, in real estate, it's the worst infomercial in the world, because real estate is hard work. It's really what it comes down to. I mean, you can work smart, but you still have hard work ahead of you. It's not for the faint of heart anymore. It's not the part-time job, the image of that, 1980s. I can remember growing up, my stepfather was a cop, and there was a couple police officers that were realtors on the side. I don't think you could pull that off anymore.
It's tough, and it's, a lot of people don't realize when you hire a realtor that they're working for free until you close escrow, and they want you to cut commissions, and they want you to do all of that. And it's like, you're putting these people in your car, you're showing them property, and they think, yes, real estate is the most profitable industry in the world. But at the same point, you've got to look at, they're also the most underpaid, because a lot of it they're not getting paid for until, like I said, until you close escrow. And I always tell new agents too, don't get emotional, because the second you get emotional about it, everything falls apart. And I understand there's going to be some transactions that you want to pull your hair out, and, the buyers get cold feet, or all of a sudden they go, you know what, I just don't want to buy anymore. And you've shown them property for the past 90 days, every single Saturday. And now you're going, I wasted all this money. But you also have to, and you learn with time, you pre-qualify your buyers ahead of time. You set the legwork. And like you said earlier, when you go into a listing appointment, you set the precedence. You say exactly, this is what we're going to do. And, some people don't like it, but honestly, honesty gets you so far. And if you're transparent with everything up front, you're going to do well. You really are.
That's good advice, because, if you walk into a situation, whether you're negotiating with another agent on a deal or negotiating with a seller to get the right to list their home, and they get any sense that they can override you, and this is how it's going to be, not the way you said it, they're going to do it. They're like the lion out there on the Serengeti sniffing out the weak one. They will pounce. So you really have to know your craft and your numbers and your market, and go in and be strong about it. And you're not going to win them all, and that's got to be okay too. And I know it's tough in the beginning, because you need to get going, but you need to get your business going. You need to earn a living. And you're right. There's a lot of attack on our commissions, because they see, especially sellers, they see what the fee is. They see 3% translates to $14,000. But what they don't see is that a third of that's going to Uncle Sam.
Right.
And another third of that's going to all the expenses that are not only attached to their deal, but to staying in business. So, there are some. We did this once in our office, and I'll never do it again, because it was so disheartening. We took apart a deal by the hour, and we realized that the person would have made better money working at McDonald's for a month than selling the house they sold. Between the commission hit they took and the concessions they made, they went out and fixed a couple problems for people that they really shouldn't have volunteered for. I'm all for fixing, if a $200 problem can save a $14,000 commission, great. But there are situations where, again, if you're not strong, they'll lean into you and go, hey, well, this is an issue, but $300 would make it go away, Mr. Realtor, and they're waiting for you to chomp on the bait.
It's so true, and that's why I say, real estate is the most underpaid industry. Truly, when you look at everything that the realtors do. And a lot of times I'll have realtors who they'll email me and go, they want me to cut my commission. What should I do? And my biggest thing I always say is, whatever profession they're in, when you go to Nordstrom's, can you ask the sales clerk, can you discount these? No, you can't. And you truly have to show them what you're bringing to the table. And, you have brokerages out there who are offering, discounted commission fees. But at the same time, you pay for what you get.
Well, and I use this line all the time. I got it from Brian Buffini many years ago, and Nordstrom's never panics when Walmart has a sale. You got to know who you are. You're either Nordstrom's or you're Walmart, and know who your audience is, and then act accordingly. But it is a challenge in our industry, and it's only getting more challenging because there are, especially in a nationwide. Speaking to realtors across actually the nation and Canada, it's a seller's market in many parts of the country still, and which gives the perception that it's an easy market. So why should I pay you all this money? But it doesn't get easier. One aspect of it may look easier. It's quicker to sell a home, but now you're dealing with 20 offers. How do you pick the right offer? That becomes the new challenge. And so there's always a challenge that expertise is required. But we kind of do it to ourselves as realtors when all we do is try to be all that flash, and we don't ever we show them like the benefits of the money we make, with the fancy car and the posing with, all the goofy trinkets and stuff that show off, my big watch.
Right.
But we don't demonstrate our value. We don't properly communicate what we're doing to deliver the goods to earn that fee. Because we do earn that fee. But we do a poor job of both separating ourselves so we're not commoditized, and proving what we do is something that not the average person can do.
Right.
Well, that was great, Thomas. Shall we go and wrap up now, Thomas?
Yeah, we probably should, because Samantha put me on my soapbox on this. Oh, man. Well, the title got more exciting as we went on. Samantha, I want to thank you for joining us here. And any closing thoughts or anything I didn't ask you that I should have that you want to mention?
If anyone ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Like I always say, I'm never too busy, and I'm always available. Like I said, this job is 24/7, and I'm always a resource. And there's never any stupid questions in this business.
And if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Best way, my phone number is 619-916-8565, or my email is samantha.belzer, BELZER, @ltic.com.
And we'll put your contact information up on the show notes too for folks. And just one last quick question, social media wise, what's your social media of choice?
Right now, I really wasn't on Facebook for the longest time, but I had to bite the bullet. So Facebook is my social media of choice, business-wise, and then personally, because I like to share my family photos, that's mainly on my Instagram.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us on the show today. And Jonathan, you want to say a few words before we sign off?
Yeah, basically how people can get hold of me, folks. It's quite easy. You can either get us on the Mel Wright Facebook page. You could email me at jonathan@mel-wright.com, or you can get hold of me through LinkedIn. They're the main ways that you can probably get. And how can people get hold of you, Thomas?
Well, they can come find me on my soapbox out here on the corner. Samantha got me all fired up today. I got some good cathartic therapy today. Got that off my chest. ThomasJNelsonRealtor.com. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, Active Rain blog site. And you can reach me the old-fashioned way. Call or text me, 858-232-8722. Folks, we appreciate you checking in with us each week, listening and downloading. We'd love for you to leave us your feedback on wherever you listen, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, or other. Give us your impressions of the show, and as well as any future guests that you think would be a good interview or topics you want us to cover. We're totally open to your suggestions, and we appreciate you tuning in each week. Thank you, and we'll see you next week with another great guest. Bye-bye.